The dawn broke, not with the typical golden hue of a new day, but with a fragile, almost tentative hope, a feeling I hadn't dared to embrace in years. Birthdays for me were typically a forgotten casualty of endless work emails or the forced charade of burnt cakes. But this one shimmered with an unusual anticipation. My wife Mira had been weaving a subtle magic around it for weeks. The same woman who once overlooked our anniversary had become a whirlwind of unexpected affection. By the way, please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this. Just last weekend, a new blazer materialized, accompanied by her enigmatic smile and the words, "It's for your big day." When I pressed her, she'd simply laugh, "Wait and see." Even my parents, usually creatures of habit, were swept into the current. My mother, Teresa, a woman who rarely called without a specific agenda, issued a dramatic decree. "Don't you dare make plans for Friday night. We've got something very special planned." And then there was my father, Harold, the undisputed king of sarcasm, whose solemn warning the day before, "Don't eat lunch tomorrow, trust me," was enough to ignite genuine suspicion. So I cleared my entire schedule every last minute, even rebuffing Malik, one of my oldest friends. "It's my 45th, I explained, a rare tremor of vulnerability in my voice. "I think my family's actually doing something for once." Malik, ever the joker, shot back, "Miracles do happen, huh?" Around 4 p.m., Mira's text arrived. "Dress nice. You'll love it." I grinned at my phone like a schoolboy, picturing the place I'd chosen. Overlook Lounge, a rooftop bar I'd always cherished. It was a cozy, stylish sanctuary with city views that had a way of dwarfing your problems, a place where for a few precious hours the world seemed to slow. I arrived early, the staff already primed for my arrival. My name was on a reservation list, a private booth, a corner view, bottle service. Someone had truly pulled out all the stops. The hostess led me to a table adorned with flickering candles, chilled champagne, and name cards. I assumed guests were simply running late. My phone remained stubbornly silent. I texted Mira, "Here, it looks amazing." No reply. I sat. I waited. 30 minutes bled into an hour. I opened the menu, feigning nonchalance, but the server, with a polite, almost pitying glance, offered, "Would you like to order while you wait?" "No, no," I insisted. "Just waiting for a few people." Then a chill, not from the weather, but from a growing dread that snaked through my chest, the kind of cold that sinks deep, forming a picture you desperately don't want to see. I called Mira, straight to voicemail. My mom, no answer. My dad, the same. A sudden buzz jolted me. A new message from Mira. It was a video. I tapped it, a desperate flicker of hope suggesting a playful prelude, a grand entrance with balloons and a silly speech. No. The video began with sunlight dancing on Venetian water, gondolas gliding, laughter echoing. Then Mira appeared, radiant and utterly unbothered, a wine glass clutched in her hand. Behind her, my mother, Teresa, raised a glass. My father, surprisingly cheerful, clinked his wine with Brent, my cousin. Mira smiled directly into the camera. "To Julian," she announced. "He's probably wondering where we are. Surprise." Everyone erupted in a chorus of laughter. "He won't be hurt by this," Mira added, a dismissive flick of her hair. "He'll be fine. He always is." The camera panned to a group toast. Cheers, clinks, wide smiles. Then darkness. I sat in stunned silence. The gentle hum of other conversations transformed into a harsh static, the clink of distant glasses into wailing sirens. It wasn't just that they were gone, it was the calculated cruelty of it. They had planned this, planned to vanish, planned to laugh on my birthday. They hadn't forgotten. No, this was an intentional act of erasure. I looked around the beautifully set table, the empty chairs, the unopened champagne, and felt a wave of profound idiocy wash over me. How stupid I must have looked to the staff, to anyone who saw me, dressed in that new blazer, waiting like some pathetic guest of honor. I took a deep, shaky breath, forcing myself to hold it together. Not here, not now. The server returned. Shall I open the champagne, sir? I met his gaze for a second too long, then nodded. Yeah, open it. If they wanted to leave me alone on my birthday, fine, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of breaking down in public. I would finish the drink, I would sit at this table, and I would etch every detail into my memory. Because this wasn't just a surprise, it was a warning. They thought I wouldn't be hurt. They were wrong. But what they had truly misjudged was this. I wasn't going to chase them. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to yell, cry, or demand an explanation. Instead, I would remember the weight of the glass in my hand, the raw sting of betrayal in my chest, the chilling silence of my phone. I would remember this table, this view, and this night for the rest of my life. Because if this was their surprise, they hadn't seen mine yet. For a while, I just sat there, numb. The champagne, now open, tasted bitter, not from the grapes or the bubbles, but from the relentless ache in my chest. I stared at the glass as if it held answers. How long had they been planning this? How many times had I paid for dinner while they sat around a table laughing about the surprise? I kept my eyes on the rooftop door, half expecting Mira to burst in, breathless and apologetic. Just kidding. But the longer I waited, the more foolish I felt. A waiter approached again, a quiet pity in his eyes. Sir, he said gently, do you want to cancel the rest of the reservation? We could refund. No, I cut him off, the word sharp and immediate. Leave it. I'm still celebrating. I didn't even believe the words as I said them, but they tumbled out anyway, perhaps because anything else would have felt like surrender. I poured another glass. My phone remained a tomb of silence. No new texts, no frantic follow-up, just the video, a digital slap to the face, waiting to be replayed. I could have left, curled up at home, swallowed by a blanket, a headache, and the soft glow of betrayal. But I didn't. Instead, I took a photo of myself, a forced smile plastered on my face, the city skyline a dazzling backdrop. I even raised my glass. I've worn worse masks in my life. I posted it to my story with the caption, "Still worth celebrating." I don't know why. To convince myself. To send a message. Perhaps both. Time moved like syrup. I stopped checking my watch. I told the waiter to bring food, even though hunger was a foreign concept. I just didn't want to look pathetic, sitting there with nothing but a half-empty bottle and a broken heart. That's when I heard it. A familiar voice. Julian, what the hell, man? Are you here alone? I looked up. Of all the people to walk into that bar, it was Malik Johnson. College roommate, one-time best man, the kind of friend you don't see for months but pick right back up with. He stood there in a dark green shirt and jeans, eyes wide, a gift bag in one hand, his phone in the other. I saw your story, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Thought it was a joke. It's not, I muttered, attempting a weak smile. Apparently the joke was on me. He didn't laugh. Instead, his gaze swept over the opulent table, the untouched desserts, the empty seats. So, where's Mira? Your folks? In Venice, I said, my voice flat. His eyebrows shot up. What? I handed him my phone. He watched the video in silence, his mouth slowly twisting into a tight, grim line. When it ended, he set the phone down. These people are out of their damn minds. I nodded but didn't speak. What was there to say? Suddenly he stood up. You're not spending this birthday like this. Not on my watch. I know a couple people in the building. Give me 15. I wanted to argue, to tell him I didn't want a pity party, but the truth was I didn't want to be alone either. I simply nodded. 15 minutes stretched into 40, and just like that, my quiet, shame-soaked table transformed. Malik returned with 3 friends, 2 women and a guy from his office. They were loud, funny, and mercifully didn't ask too many questions. Another bottle appeared. They danced to music from a nearby speaker. One of the women, Jasmine, insisted on a selfie with me. You've got great cheekbones, she said, and I laughed, the first genuine laugh all night. More people joined. Malik posted something on his feed. Last-minute birthday bash for a real one, tagging me. Soon, a few more friends from work dropped in. I didn't know how it was happening, but the table filled up. People ordered appetizers. Someone ordered cake. A stranger handed me a cigar. "You look like you need this." And weirdly, I did. I started to loosen up. The music felt warmer. The food tasted again. I told stories from college. Someone toasted to the birthday legend who survived abandonment and turned it into a vibe. I clinked glasses with people whose names I didn't even know. And somewhere between the third drink and the shared dessert plate, I felt something shift. The grief didn't vanish, but it stopped being a wall. It became a room I could stand in without suffocating. I didn't check my phone for hours. When I finally did, I had to scroll through the missed calls. At first, 1 or 2 from Mira, then 10, then 15, then a flurry of calls from my mom, from Brent, even Harold. By midnight, the total was 74 missed calls. I turned on airplane mode and slid the phone back into my jacket. The irony was exquisite. The one night I wasn't waiting by the phone was the night it wouldn't stop ringing, but I didn't respond. Not that night, maybe not ever. I left the bar around 2 a.m. Malik walked me to the curb, slung an arm over my shoulder. "Next year," he said, "we do this on purpose." "I'll hold you to that." He nodded, then added, "They don't deserve your silence, but they damn sure don't deserve your voice either." That stuck with me. When I got home, I took off the blazer Mira had given me, hung it in the very back of the closet. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room. The framed vacation photos, the art she'd picked out, the candles I always hated. It didn't feel like my home anymore. I lay back on the bed, shoes still on, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a husband or a son or a wallet. I felt like a man. And in the quiet of that moment, I made a decision. Not to get even, not to strike back, but to walk forward with clarity, with silence, with power. Because if they thought that video would be the final word on who I was, they forgot something important. I'm still here, and I'm just getting started. It's strange, isn't it, how the signs were always there, bright as daylight, but you only see them clearly when you stop pretending not to. After that night on the rooftop, I began looking back, not just at the birthday, not just at the video, but at everything leading up to it. And once I started tracing the timeline, the picture formed quickly. I had been living with a house full of whispers, but I had convinced myself they were just wind. It started months earlier, really. The sudden silence when I entered a room, the hurried closing of laptops, screens dimmed, the quick forced laughs whenever I asked, "What's so funny?" Mira always had a reason. "Just a meme," she'd say. "A stupid group chat." I believed her, or maybe I just didn't care to argue. That's the thing about love. You keep telling yourself there's nothing behind the curtain because the alternative hurts too much. But now I saw it all. Sunday dinners became uncomfortable, not for any obvious reason, but because the very energy shifted. My mother, Teresa, would stare at me with this strange smile, a smug, knowing smirk that lingered even when I tried to change the subject. She'd say things like, "You'll thank us soon," or "Trust me, this year will surprise you." I thought they were just excited for the birthday plan, cooking up something sweet. I didn't realize they were sharpening knives and wrapping them in ribbons. Even Brent, my cousin, who usually cared about no one but himself, started acting like he knew something I didn't. "Get ready to have your mind blown," he'd told me one day, passing through my house to pick up a charger Mira had borrowed. I laughed at the time, thinking it was some harmless family trip surprise. He winked on his way out. It wasn't a wink of kindness. It was the wink of someone who had watched the trapdoor being built and couldn't wait to see me fall through it. Tristan, Mira's brother, was another one. He'd started skipping work more often. When I asked if everything was okay, he brushed it off with that lazy charm of his. "Just enjoying life a little," he'd said. "You should try it too." Later, I found out he was skipping work to help Mira finalize travel bookings, paid for, of course, with my money. I should have known. Mira had stopped asking me about finances months ago, not because she didn't care, but because she already knew the answers. She had the passwords, she had the cards, she had the freedom. Looking back, even our bedroom had changed. She used to curl up next to me and hum little songs before falling asleep. Somewhere in the last year, that stopped. I didn't even notice until one night I looked up and realized I hadn't touched her in weeks, maybe longer. The warmth was gone. She started sleeping facing the other way, always with her phone close to her chest like a diary full of sins. I remember reaching out once, touching her back gently. She shifted forward, away from my hand. "Long day," she'd said. That was all. There's this thing that happens when someone slowly stops loving you. It's not an explosion, it's erosion. A soft daily wearing down of affection, of connection. You don't hear it. You don't feel it at first. But one day you realize there's a hole where something used to be. A presence, a heartbeat, a soul. After the birthday disaster, I started moving through my own house like a stranger. Mira hadn't come back yet, but her energy lingered. The faint scent of her perfume on the couch pillow, her half-used hairbrush on the sink, her robe hanging behind the door. I would walk into rooms and still expect her voice, but there was nothing, just my own footsteps. And then came the emails. I started checking our shared desktop, the one in the living room. She'd gotten too comfortable, didn't clear the browser history, didn't close her accounts. That's where I saw it. The travel itinerary. Flights booked 3 weeks before my birthday. Hotel reservations in Florence. Group chat emails with subject lines like Operation Surprise Ghost. Photos of passport scans. Not mine, of course, just hers, my parents, Brent's and Tristan's. The whole group, every single one of them knew, planned, agreed, and not one of them thought to even send me a proper message, just that stupid video. I remember sitting at that desk, staring at the screen, my heart pounding like it was trying to fight its way out of my chest. My hand hovered over the mouse for a long time, my thumb flicking against the edge of the table, that nervous tick I get when I'm trying to swallow rage. I didn't cry, not because I didn't want to, but because I had nothing left. No tears, just this dry, aching hollowness. There was also a thread from Mira to my mother. "Mira, do you think he'll get mad?" "Teresa, he doesn't get mad. He gets quiet. Then he moves on. Trust me, that one did it. That made something snap." That's when I realized who I had become to them. Not a husband, not a son, just a body, a source of money, a background character, quiet, safe, predictable, easy to laugh at, easy to use. They thought I was weak because I didn't shout, because I didn't throw things or slam doors, because I made peace, stayed calm, paid bills, didn't pry. They mistook grace for passivity, dignity for weakness. But what they didn't realize is that silence, real silence, can be the sharpest weapon in the world, especially when it belongs to a man who sees everything and says nothing until it's too late. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I slept on the couch, not because I was kicked out, but because I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. Her ghost was everywhere. The laughter that no longer included me, the secrets told under the covers, the lies whispered through the walls. I stared at the ceiling, my eyes tracing the shadow of the fan blades around and around. The air felt too still, like the whole house was holding its breath. I thought about packing a bag, about leaving, about vanishing the way they had. But then I thought, no. Let them come back to find me still here. Let them walk into this house expecting the same ghost and find a man they never saw coming. The day after I found those emails, I sat at the kitchen table with my bank app open, scrolling through months of transactions like I was reviewing a crime scene. And maybe I was, because what I saw didn't just confirm my suspicions, it dragged them into the daylight and burned them into my memory. I had been funding my own betrayal, quietly, willingly, stupidly. First, there was a $1,200 charge to a planning firm Mira had insisted was for my birthday celebration. I remembered her saying it would be something small but elegant, just enough to remind you how loved you are. What she didn't say was that the planner specialized in international retreats. That same planner also booked travel packages for Florence and Venice, according to their website. I stared at the charge and laughed, a bitter, quiet sound that echoed in the kitchen. Then there were the flights, 2 sets of tickets to Rome and Florence on the same day, booked weeks apart under the family travel account. That account had always been in my name. Always. It started when I began managing the finances after my dad retired early. My parents had trouble staying organized, and I thought I was helping. Every time I paid their bills, booked their flights, or covered one of Brent's college debts, they acted grateful, said things like, "Julian, we don't know how we'd survive without you." Now I knew the truth. They could survive without me just fine. They just couldn't exploit me without my help. $1.1860. That's how much had been spent in the last 10 days. Flights, hotels, a wine tasting in Tuscany. And it was all there in black and white. Not hidden, not masked. Just sitting in plain sight like a slap across the face. Mira never asked permission. My mother never said a word. Brent, of course, never thanked me. He never even texted. Why would he? I was just the wallet, the machine, the quiet guy in the corner whose money solved everyone's problems. That night I walked into our bedroom and stared at Mira's vanity. On it sat a necklace I bought her for our anniversary, a delicate gold piece she had gushed over at the store but hadn't worn once since. I picked it up, turned it in my fingers, and for a moment imagined handing it back to her and saying, "Here, this is the last thing you'll ever get from me." But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I opened her drawer and pulled out the little blue folder where she kept our joint financial files. I flipped through receipts, statements, scribbled notes. There was one from 3 months ago, a spa package for 2. Mira said she went with a friend named Alina, but now I knew better. There was no Alina. There never had been. Just like there was no mystery planner or secret party. It wasn't just the spending, it was the way they all expected I wouldn't notice. Like I was too dull, too distracted, too forgiving. Mira used to joke that I had the soul of an accountant. Organized, careful, detached. What she didn't know was that accountants don't forget. They remember every cent, every line item, every betrayal disguised as a favor. I sat in the living room. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. I thought about all the things I had paid for over the years. Mira's car, the down payment on Brent's apartment, the luxury cruise my parents took last summer. I had justified it all as family, as love, as support. But that's the trick, isn't it? The people who hurt you the most are always the ones who tell you they need you. I checked the credit card logs again. There it was. Another purchase Mira made just 5 days before they left. A boutique shop in Florence. A deposit. She hadn't even left the country yet, but had already paid for a dress she planned to pick up overseas. I leaned back in the chair and let the air leave my lungs slowly. This wasn't carelessness, it was confidence. She knew I wouldn't question it. She knew I wouldn't stop her. That's what hurt the most. I opened the browser again, searched the boutique. There was a photo of the shop tucked into a cobblestone alley, glowing with warm lights and romance. In the window was a mannequin wearing a silk dress, soft blue with gold embroidery. Mira had described that exact dress to me once, months ago, when we were watching an old Italian film. She'd whispered, "If we ever go to Florence, that's what I'd wear." I remembered saying, "We should go sometime." But she had gone without me, worn the dream without me, lived the life we planned without me, and worse, she used my hands to pay for it. That night I sat in the bathroom staring at my reflection. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I just looked, long and hard. My eyes tired, my face drawn, my mouth downturned even in rest. But beneath all that weariness I saw something new. Resolve. I realized something no one had ever told me growing up. Sometimes love blinds you, not because it's bright, but because it's quiet. Because it teaches you to endure instead of question, to give instead of guard. But I was done enduring, done giving without being seen. They had erased me from their celebration. So now I would erase them from my generosity. The next morning, I called the travel agent listed on the planning firm's invoice. I introduced myself, gave my name, and asked a simple question. Was this charged to my account? The woman on the other end hesitated. Yes, she said. Booked under a Julian cross? Is there an issue? No issue, I said calmly. Just confirmation. Thank you. Then I opened my laptop and logged into every account. Bank, credit, savings, travel. I started changing passwords, locking cards, canceling add-on users, one by one, quietly, surgically, like pulling leeches off your skin, careful not to let the head stay buried. I opened a spreadsheet and made a list. Every expense, every name, every betrayal. And then beneath it, I wrote one final line: no more. They forgot to thank me because they never thought they'd need to. Now they're about to remember why they should have. After I locked all the accounts and changed every password, I didn't say a word. Not to Mira, not to my parents, not even to Brent. Silence became my shield, and oddly enough, it felt like the first time I was truly in control. When you're the quiet one in a group, people think you're weak. They mistake stillness for surrender. But what they forget is that silence listens, and I had been listening for a long time. That morning I made myself a cup of black coffee and stood by the window, watching the light shift across the buildings. The house was still. Mira hadn't returned yet, but I knew they were back in the country. My inbox had exploded. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, even a few emails titled things like, "We should talk," or "Let's clear this up." I didn't open any of them. I didn't need to. Whatever they had to say, I'd already heard the truth in their laughter. I posted a photo instead. Something simple. Me on the balcony, wearing a clean black shirt, holding a glass of scotch, city skyline behind me. The caption read, "Still celebrating thanks to the real ones." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't explain anything. But within 10 minutes, the calls doubled. Mira, my mother, Brent, even Harold, who hadn't called me on his own in years. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk. They were all worried. Not because I was hurt, but because I wasn't reacting the way they expected. They were bracing for a tantrum, a meltdown, some dramatic plea to be included again, but I gave them silence instead. And silence, it turns out, is terrifying when it comes from the one you thought you had under control. Mira left 4 voicemails that morning. "Hey, can you call me back? This is all being blown out of proportion. It was supposed to be a joke, like a funny surprise. I didn't think you'd take it so personally." Then later, "Julian, please, everyone's upset now. My mom says you're being dramatic. Just call me." And finally, "You're scaring people. Brent says you haven't responded to anyone. This isn't like you. What are you doing?" I stared at the phone for a long time after that one. What am I doing? I'm thinking. I'm watching. I'm giving you the quiet you thought you wanted until you realized it meant you were no longer in control. Teresa, my mother, texted, "We were only trying to shake things up. You've been so disconnected lately. We thought a bold gesture would wake you up." I read that one 5 times. Wake me up? You thought erasing me, mocking me, laughing at my absence on my own birthday would wake me up. I left her message unread. Brent sent a voice note. I didn't listen to it. The man once cried to me over a broken lease and I bailed him out. I co-signed a loan when no one else would. Now he wanted to explain he could keep his voice to himself. The most surreal part of the whole thing was how quickly the roles reversed. I used to chase their approval, try to be the reliable one, the steady son, the helpful husband. Now, with one quiet post and no responses, I had all of them rattled. I walked around the house that day and realized how different everything looked in silence. The dining room table where we had shared dinners suddenly looked too polished, too staged. The couch we cuddled on during movies felt cold, too neat. The hallway photos, smiling vacations, posed portraits, felt like fiction. It's amazing how quickly love can rot when you finally see the mold beneath the paint. I sat at the desk and started organizing everything. Legal documents, account records, passwords. I made copies, put them in a separate folder, and locked it away. I wasn't just cleaning house, I was clearing space, for clarity, for change. That evening I received a text from Malik. "Just saw your post. Proud of you, man. Let me know if you need anything." That was it. Simple, Clean. Real. I replied with a thumbs up and didn't feel the need to explain. He knew. Some friends don't need backstory, they just understand the temperature of silence. Around 8:30 p.m., Mira called again. I didn't answer. She left another voicemail. Julian, I just landed. I'm heading home. Please don't make this ugly. That made me laugh out loud. I was making it ugly. I poured another scotch and sat down in the den. I left the lights off. I wanted to sit in the quiet, to hear the pulse of the house as it used to be, before the lies started piling up like dust, before love turned into obligation, before trust became debt. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and for once it wasn't racing. I was calm. That night, I drafted a document outlining every financial account I planned to restructure. Mira's name would be removed. Automatic payments for anything with her name or her family's would stop. The credit cards, gone. The joint checking, closed. Access to the investment accounts, denied. It wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. I wasn't punishing them. I was simply correcting a mistake, one I'd let fester for too long. By midnight, I had a list of everything I controlled and everything I would sever. I labeled the list reset, and that word felt powerful. They thought silence was surrender, but they thought my silence was weakness, a void where purpose once resided. They mistook my quiet nature for docility, for a man content to merely exist in the periphery of their vibrant, self-centered lives. But they forgot what silence truly is: preparation, the profound stillness that precedes a seismic shift. For too long, I was the unheard whisper, the agreeable nod, the ever-present but utterly unseen figure in their grand narrative. Myra and all those who basked in her careless glow never comprehended the dormant power within me. They never saw beyond the husband, the fixer of trivial domestic woes, the silent financier of Brent's endless emergencies. They were oblivious to the fact that I had become something far more significant. The majority shareholder in the very company Myra's brother Tristan so boastfully championed at every family dinner. "We're building something big," he'd declare, his chest puffed with unearned pride. "The company's growing fast." And he was right, though for all the wrong reasons. It was growing fast because of me. 3 years ago, I had quietly, meticulously invested, acquiring shares through a discreet firm, then patiently watched as my influence bloomed. Last year, when one of the co-founders stepped away, I re-entered the arena, still understated yet securing a larger stake. By January, without a whisper of fanfare, I was unanimously voted in as executive director. Tristan, in his boundless self-absorption, never connected the dots. He simply believed I was some amenable investor, favored by his boss. He remained blissfully unaware that I was the very hand signing his bonus approvals, his time-off requests, his coveted promotions. So imagine the ice-cold precision of my internal HR alert. Tristan Grady, unauthorized time off, 7 consecutive days without prior approval. I clicked open the report, the digital evidence laid bare. He'd claimed a short medical leave. Yet his public social media pulsed with the vibrant lie, sipping cocktails in Florence, shirtless selfies on sun-drenched boats, hashtags screaming Beza living my best life and Day's family first trip. The sheer audacity, the blatant disregard for consequence. He hadn't even attempted to conceal it, confident in his invisibility, in my supposed blindness. I could have unleashed the full fury of disciplinary action then and there, but I didn't, not yet. I saved the report, a pristine printout, and meticulously placed it in a folder. That folder was already a growing testament to Myra's recent charges, the chilling records of frozen joint accounts, and every single betrayal I had unearthed since that desolate birthday night. I wasn't ready to strike. I wanted them to feel the deceptive warmth of safety just a little longer. The next day I entered the office, a ghost in plain sight. I sat in the glass-walled office on the executive floor, the one no one ever associated with my quiet presence. I greeted everyone with polite detachment, Tristan's name unuttered. Let him believe the illusion of well-being. Let the entire world continue to perceive me as the weary, forgotten husband, Let them savor their espresso, oblivious to the fissures spreading beneath their feet. I wasn't merely withdrawing my money, I was reclaiming my presence. You see, I had cultivated more than wealth. I had forged reach, contacts, influence, a subtle web Myra never suspected. While she flaunted designer bags and meticulously curated Instagram stories over dinner, I was forging silent partnerships and building substantial equity. While she and her friends openly mocked my supposed dullness, I was seated across from decision-makers, individuals who effortlessly outmaneuvered her flashy lifestyle. One such man, Raymond, a sharp season board member, pulled me aside in the elevator. "So," he drawled, his gaze piercing, "I hear your in-laws are making a bit of a splash overseas." I merely raised an eyebrow. "Let's just say some people forget who signs their checks," he continued, a knowing pat on my shoulder. I offered no reply. I didn't have to. By lunchtime, I had quietly submitted a motion to freeze all pending bonuses across Tristan's division. HR would handle it, discreet, respectful, yet utterly firm. He would receive a call in 2 days, a formal inquiry, nothing ostentatious. Just enough to feel the ground shift beneath his feet. That evening, I returned to a kitchen that reeked of manufactured domesticity. Myra was back early, draped in that sky-blue silk dress, the very one she had dreamed of buying for Florence. She wore it like a trophy, a defiant symbol. She stirred pasta, an image of serene normalcy. She smiled over her shoulder. "I thought we could eat and talk." I said nothing, simply placed my briefcase on the floor and walked past her into the living room. She followed, wiping her hands on a towel. "Julian, I know you're mad, but it was just supposed to be fun. You've been so distant lately, and I thought maybe a reset would help." I turned, my voice calm, clear. "You planned a vacation and left me out of it." "It wasn't like that," she insisted, her voice tight with a practiced innocence. "It was spontaneous." "No," I countered. "It was organized. You used my accounts. You used my name. You made bookings in advance. You lied." Her smile dissolved. She straightened, her posture defensively rigid. "So what now? You're going to punish me?" I tilted my head, a slow, deliberate motion. "No, I'm going to free myself from you." Her eyes widened, caught completely off guard. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, each word a stone dropping into a still pond, "I'm no longer giving myself to people who see me as a wallet or a background character or someone who doesn't get angry." She crossed her arms, a familiar dismissiveness in her tone. "Don't be dramatic." I offered a small, tired smile. "You called me dramatic after stealing my birthday and calling it a surprise." "Julian," she tried again, "you're making this bigger than it needs to be. Just tell me what you want. I can fix it." "No," I stated, my voice unwavering. "You can't, because this isn't broken. It's exposed." Her face transformed. Fear, stark and raw, crept into her eyes. She knew. Something fundamental had shifted. I picked up the folder, a silent harbinger of storm. "Tristan will be hearing from HR soon. Just a heads up. Tell him to prepare." Her eyes widened further. "You wouldn't." "I already did," I replied, the truth unadorned. She stepped forward, pleading. "Julian, please. That's my brother." "And you," I countered, the words like ice, "are my wife. At least you used to be." I left her standing there. No shouts, no tears. I didn't need them. For the most powerful lesson I had learned was this: I didn't have to raise my voice to raise my worth. 3 days after the video, 3 days after the solitary rooftop dinner, 3 days after accounts were frozen and every betrayal meticulously documented, I was home. My jacket still on, keys in hand, I heard it. Voices in the hallway, laughter, familiar footsteps, the rolling drag of suitcases. Myra's high heels tapped across the floor, a defiant rhythm, as if nothing had ever fractured the polished facade of our life. My heart remained calm, no panicked thrum. I simply stood in the center of the living room and waited. The door swung open as it always did. Myra entered first, nudging the door with her hip, sunglasses still perched on her face, a designer shopping bag looped around her wrist. Behind her, Teresa clutching a small box of pastries from that absurdly overpriced bakery she adored. Then my father, Harold, in the same beige polo and smug expression he always wore post-vacation. Brent, with his perpetual half-smirk, trailed behind, lost in the self-congratulatory film playing in his mind. They walked in, a tableau of normalcy, as if I hadn't watched them, halfway across the world, laughing at my expense. Myra was the first to speak. "Julian, good, you're home." She took a step, intending a kiss to my cheek. I took a small step back. She blinked but said nothing. Teresa placed the bakery box on the table, a peace offering of sugar. "We brought cannoli," she announced, as if dessert could absolve betrayal. Harold chuckled, a condescending sound, and clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't be sore, son. It was just a playful trip." I looked at them, one by one. My eyes didn't burn, my hands didn't tremble. I was too far beyond the shock now to be emotional. I was in that desolate, clear-eyed space beyond pain, where truth hits with such force it strips away all feeling, replacing it with an unwavering purpose. "Julian," Myra began again, her voice softer, laced with false contrition. "We wanted to surprise you. We thought it would be funny, to flip the script, show you that you don't always have to plan everything." She smiled as if presenting a gift. "We even recorded a video. You saw it, right?" "I saw it," I confirmed, my voice flat. Teresa spoke next. "You've always been so closed off, so we thought maybe a bold gesture would get through to you. We didn't think it would hurt you. You're not sensitive," Harold interjected, his voice blustery. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. It was one weekend, a little trip. We're back now, aren't we?" I didn't move. "You left me alone on my birthday," I stated quietly. "You lied. You laughed about it. You used my money to do it." Brent shifted awkwardly. "Come on, man, don't make it weird." I turned to Myra. "How long did you plan it?" She hesitated. "A few weeks?" 3 months, I corrected, holding up my phone. "I've seen the travel confirmations, the emails, the bookings." Her face fell. Teresa looked uncomfortable. "You went through her things?" she asked, as if that were the true transgression. "I managed the accounts," I replied. "All of them. The only reason you flew to Venice in business class was because I paid for it. You didn't even try to hide it." Harold scoffed. "You're acting like a victim." "No," I said, taking a deliberate step forward. "I'm acting like someone who finally woke up." A heavy silence descended. Myra stepped forward again, placing her shopping bag gently on the table. "Julian, please, you're blowing this up. We're your family." "No," I repeated. "Your people I gave too much of myself to, and you took advantage of that. All of you." Teresa slowly sank onto the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "You're being emotional." "No," I corrected, my voice steady, uncompromising. "I'm being clear." I picked up the folder I had placed on the counter earlier that morning. Inside were printouts, account closures, suspended cards, legal notices. I slid it across the polished surface of the coffee table. "What's this?" Myra asked, picking it up, her brow furrowed. "Your access to our accounts is revoked," I informed her. "All of it. You'll need your own card, your own plan, your own money." Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Brent snatched one of the pages. "What is this about Tristan?" "He took an unauthorized leave from work," I explained. "Company policy requires consequences, and since I oversee executive decisions now, he's suspended pending review." Teresa's jaw dropped. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Harold rose to his feet, his face flushed. "You're making enemies in your own house." "No," I countered, my gaze unwavering. "You're in my house, and you've been treating me like a stranger for years." Myra's voice cracked, raw with burgeoning panic. "Julian, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you erased me from the one day that meant something. You stood there on video and said I wouldn't be hurt, that I'd be fine. like I was just decoration, background, some fool who funds your vacations and asks no questions. She tried to interrupt, but I pushed on. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm not asking for explanations. I don't want to hear why it was a joke or how I'm too quiet. This isn't about being dramatic. This is about being done. The silence that followed was suffocating. No one reached for the cannoli. Myra looked down at the folder, then back at me. You can't just cut me off. I can, I said, and I did. She stepped forward, her voice lower now, laced with desperate pleading. Julian, we've been together for 10 years. I know exactly how long, I said, the words cutting. Every day of it, every dollar, every lie. Teresa stood. You're turning your back on your family. No, I corrected softly. You turned your backs first, and now you're shocked. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. I won't pretend I'm okay. Take your bags, take your bakery box, go home. Myra's eyes filled with tears. This is our home. It was, I replied, the finality chilling. Now it's just where I finally woke up. They stood there for another minute, a frozen tableau of disbelief. Then Myra slowly picked up her purse. Brent grabbed his suitcase. Teresa remained silent. Harold muttered something beneath his breath I didn't care to decipher, and then one by one they walked out. I didn't slam the door, I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I simply locked the door. And finally, blessedly, I exhaled. Later that night, the silence in the house was immense, but it was not empty. It felt earned. The kind of quiet that follows when you finally cease to explain yourself to people who never truly listened in the first place. I felt no pride, no sorrow. For the first time in years, I felt awake. I felt as though I had reclaimed something I hadn't even realized I had lost, my voice. I walked to the living room and sat at the desk. My laptop remained open, as did Myra's email. She never logged out of our shared computer. I hadn't planned to delve any deeper, but curiosity, a sly whisper, crept in. Really? That quiet inner voice prodded. What else did they say when they thought you'd never find out? I clicked through the inbox slowly. Nothing immediately surprising. Store promotions, travel confirmations, a forwarded meme from her friend Lydia. Then I saw it. An old email thread with the subject line, Operation Surprise Ghost. I had seen that title before, but had never opened every message in the chain. This time I did. There it was, a message from Brent. Tamira, Brent, I still can't believe he hasn't caught on. Like, how dense do you have to be to not notice your wife planning a birthday trip with everyone but you? LOL. I read it twice, then continued scrolling. Myra, Julian doesn't pay attention to stuff like this. He's too soft, honestly. He'll probably say thank you when he sees the video. That's the kind of guy he is. Brent, perfect fool. Myra, exactly. Saul and I say it all the time. He actually thinks we're doing something for him. Lol. Saul. Lol. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a frantic heartbeat. Who the hell was Saul? It didn't take long to discover. A few more clicks and I unearthed a series of emails between Myra and someone named Saul Glassman. They used a separate email chain. Most were harmless at first, jokes, articles, video links. Then came the attachments, photos, screenshots. Myra in Italy. Myra on a balcony I didn't recognize. Myra holding a glass of wine, leaning close to a man I'd never seen before. There was one photo, both of them in robes in a hotel room. The timestamp, the night of my birthday. I didn't blink. I didn't look away. I kept reading. Saul, he really still doesn't know? Damn, that's wild. Myra, he's got no clue. Julian's the type who would notice a fire only after it burns down the house. Saul, lucky for us. Myra, unlucky for him. I leaned back in the chair, every inch of me perfectly still. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It was amusement, mockery. They believed themselves clever, astute. They thought I was a fool, lost in spreadsheets and grocery runs. They were so utterly confident in their little game that they had left the pieces lying in plain sight. I opened another tab and messaged my lawyer, Adrian. We had worked together for years through my company, a bond of trust and efficiency. She had navigated major contracts and disputes without so much as a flicker of hesitation. I didn't disclose everything, simply sent a stark, concise message. Please prepare a full severance strategy, personal and financial. I'll need a consultation by end of week. I closed the laptop after that. I didn't need to read more. I had seen enough. Every confirmation I hadn't even realized I needed was now a quiet, burning flame, incinerating the old version of my life. But I felt no rage. That was the profound surprise. I had anticipated fury, thought I would shatter something. Instead, I felt something entirely different. Relief. Relief that I hadn't imagined it, that the suffocating tension in our house hadn't been paranoia, that I wasn't crazy for feeling like a stranger in my own life. The worst part of betrayal isn't the act itself, it's the insidious gaslighting, the way they make you feel guilty for simply asking questions, for noticing, for caring. And once you learn the truth, all of that crushing weight falls away like discarded armor. The next morning, I rose early and brewed coffee. I played music loud and smooth and opened the windows, inviting the morning sun. Myra hadn't returned. I presumed she was at her mother's, or perhaps even Saul's. I didn't care. I disabled the shared location tracking, deleted the backup access to all accounts, submitted the paperwork to close the joint investment profile, and blocked her number. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to confront her. The silence was saying everything I needed to say. Later that afternoon, I drove to the bank and met with my private advisor. We moved half the liquid funds into a new account solely in my name. I rewrote my will. I signed a temporary freeze on any withdrawal requests from the old trust fund Myra had partial access to. I even updated the beneficiary details. Everything now flowed through a foundation I had quietly been establishing in my grandmother's name. I told no one, not even Malik. By evening, I was sitting on my balcony again, a glass of water this time, the city glowing beneath me, calm. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't anxious. I wasn't waiting for a phone to ring or a door to open. I was simply still, present. Around 7:45 p.m., an unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text appeared. Myra, you froze the trust account. Julian, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. I stared at the screen and smiled to myself, a small, knowing upturn of my lips. I typed out a reply, paused, then deleted it. Instead, I responded with 2 words, not anymore. Another call. I ignored it. Then my mother, then Brent. The messages cascaded in, frantic, panicked, bewildered. Teresa, why is my credit card declined? Brent, call me now, seriously. Myra, I need to talk to you, please. You're going too far. They hadn't expected me to find out. They hadn't expected me to fight back. And they certainly hadn't expected me to do it without raising my voice. But they should have known. I was never the fool. I was simply patient. And now they were about to discover what patience becomes when it finally runs out. It was a Friday morning when Myra finally appeared at my office. I had anticipated it, honestly. I'd even thought she'd come sooner. But her delay didn't surprise me. Myra had always exhibited boldness when she felt powerful, yet hesitated when the tide began to turn. I had just stepped out of a meeting regarding a property investment with Malik when my assistant buzzed me. Sir, there's someone here to see you. I didn't need to ask who. I already knew. Let her in, I instructed, standing and slowly buttoning my jacket. I wanted to be utterly composed, not to impress her, but to refuse her even a flicker of the man she believed she could control. When she walked in, she bore no resemblance to the version of herself I had seen in Italy. No designer coat, no meticulously styled curls. Just tired eyes, hair pulled back too tightly, a cheap blouse she had probably thrown on in a desperate rush. But what struck me most was the raw panic in her face, thinly veiled beneath a strained smile. Julian, she breathed, closing the door behind her. Can we talk? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. You're talking. Go ahead. She sat down slowly. I don't even know where to start. Everything is falling apart. I didn't speak. I didn't nod. I wanted her to feel the crushing weight of her own words, uninterrupted. She swallowed hard. My accounts aren't working. The trust access is blocked. Brent got evicted from his place yesterday. My mom and dad's mortgage was declined. They said the joint collateral was removed. What is going on? You're describing the consequences of your choices, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. She leaned forward. Julian, please. I didn't mean for things to go this far. That video, it wasn't meant to hurt you. We were trying to be funny, just lighthearted. I raised an eyebrow. You said I wouldn't be hurt by it. You said I was soft, that I wouldn't do anything, that I wouldn't even notice. Her face twisted. You read my emails. I read what was left out in the open, I corrected. You didn't hide any of it. You just assumed I wouldn't look. She exhaled sharply. Okay, yes, I said some things I shouldn't have, but that doesn't mean you should ruin our lives. I didn't ruin your life, I replied. I stopped funding the one you built on top of mine. She looked as if she had been slapped. Julian, we're married. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I leaned forward. It meant everything to me until the day you took a trip to Italy with my parents, laughed at me on camera, cheated with another man, and used my money to do it all. You don't get to talk about meaning now. Silence. Then softer, almost desperate, she said, Tell me what I can do. Just tell me. I'll fix it. I'll do anything. I stood up and walked toward the window, hands in my pockets. You know what hurts the most? I said without turning around. It's not that you forgot my birthday. It's that you remembered it and still chose to make me feel invisible. That's not forgetfulness. That's cruelty. She sniffled behind me. I didn't think you'd care this much. I turned around slowly. That's the problem, Myra. You never thought I'd care. You never thought I'd notice. You never thought I'd leave. You thought I'd just keep giving, keep paying, keep forgiving. Her voice cracked. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. I nodded. Yes, you were. Silence settled between us again, thick and suffocating. She stood up too now, walking toward me, her eyes glazed with tears. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her for a long time before answering. You already did. You just didn't realize it until the money stopped. She looked down at the floor, her shoulders slumping. She had no more cards to play. Then I spoke the words that sealed it, the final irrevocable blow. I invited you to celebrate the most important day of my life, and you RSVP'd from Rome. That broke her. She crumpled back into the chair, hands clamped over her mouth, sobbing quietly. Not loudly, not theatrically, but the way people do when they finally understand something is truly irrevocably over. I didn't flinch. I didn't console her. I simply stood still and watched the final image of the woman I once loved fade before my eyes. A knock at the door interrupted us. My assistant peeked in. Mr. Cross, your noon is here. I nodded. Myra stood up slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Julian, she whispered, her voice shaking. Please, one more chance. I opened the door and gestured toward it. You should go. She hesitated, then stepped past me into the hallway. Before she left, she turned and looked at me one last time. You used to be so kind. I still am, I said. That's why I'm not dragging this out any longer. The door shut behind her. That night I posted one last photo on social media. It was Malik and me standing in front of the new property we were launching, a clean modern office building wrapped in glass and confidence. The caption read, "Growth looks good on me." The likes rolled in, as did the comments, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the message and who it reached. The next morning, Myra's mother called me 5 times. I didn't answer. Brent emailed me a long apology that ended with a request for a loan. I archived it without reading. Teresa sent a text. We didn't realize how serious you were. I deleted it. I wasn't being harsh. I was being honest. They forgot my birthday, so now I would forget them. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with the one thing they never expected: peace. 6 months later, I live in a city where no one calls me the quiet one anymore. No one greets me with a smirk that hides pity. No one expects me to foot their bill while they laugh behind my back. I traded the old house, the old life, and everything tied to it for something cleaner, something definitively mine. I wake up to peace now, and I don't mean silence. I mean peace, the kind that sits in your chest like a steady heartbeat, not a ticking bomb. I moved out of the house 2 months after Myra left my office. Sold it to a young couple who smiled like they hadn't yet learned how cruel people could be. I packed my belongings one box at a time, slowly with intention. I left behind the furniture Myra had picked out, the paintings her mother liked, even the rug Teresa once called tasteful for someone so quiet. I didn't want any of it. I took my books, a few clothes, and my grandmother's old piano. That was enough. I bought a loft in a smaller city by the water. High ceilings, clean walls, big windows, quiet neighbors. The kind of place where you can hear your own thoughts and actually want to. Malik helped with the move. He even showed up with a tool set and a bottle of bourbon. "This is who you've always been," he observed, walking through the empty space. "You just needed the noise to stop to hear it." He was right. I started a new project, something small, something personal, a foundation in my grandmother's name. She was the only person who ever truly saw me. She raised me part-time when my parents were too busy flaunting their lives. She used to say, "Julian, some people love what you do. Others only love what they can take from you. Learn the difference." I didn't understand it then. Now I do. The foundation provides business grants to men starting over, divorced, displaced, overlooked. Not because I'm bitter, but because I know what it's like to feel erased, to be told you don't matter until your silence becomes a problem. We've helped 12 men so far. One of them, a teacher named Desmond, cried when I handed him a check. "You don't even know me," he said. I smiled. "I know enough," I told him. "I know what it's like to lose everything and realize you were never seen in the first place. I've built a life now where I don't need permission to matter. My calendar belongs to me. My energy belongs to me. My money, my kindness, my time, all mine. Not up for debate, not up for guilt. I eat dinner with people who listen when I speak. I walk into rooms where I don't need to shrink. I look in mirrors that don't reflect someone else's disappointment. I live. Every now and then I still hear from the past. Teresa sends emails with subject lines like, "Are you still upset?" or "We didn't mean to hurt you." I never open them. Brent texted me last week, "Heard you're doing well. Proud of you, man." I didn't reply. Proud of me after calling me a perfect fool. Please. And Myra? Well, she tried everything. First came the emails, then the voice notes, then a hand-delivered letter I never opened. She even showed up at the foundation once, hoping for a conversation. But I didn't let her in. My assistant met her at the door and said, "Mr. Cross isn't available today." Which was true. I wasn't available. Not for her. Not anymore. What people don't understand is that healing doesn't always look loud. It's not a big speech or a slam door. Sometimes it's just a quiet walk away and never looking back. That's what I did, and that's why I win. A few weeks ago, I celebrated my birthday, my 46th. Malik threw a barbecue on the rooftop of our new property. It wasn't fancy, no speeches, just laughter, real laughter, the kind that doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth. People showed up who wanted nothing from me. They brought food, drinks, stories. One guy brought his kid, another brought a cake shaped like a giant eraser. "For the man they tried to erase but couldn't," he said. We laughed for 10 minutes straight. That night, I stood alone for a moment, looking over the city lights. I thought about last year, about the video, the voices, the smug smiles. I thought about the version of me who sat at a rooftop bar alone, holding back tears with a champagne glass in hand. And then I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I survived it. Because I rebuilt without bitterness. Because I remembered who I was before they taught me to doubt it. I am Julian Cross. I am not the background. I am not the wallet. I am not the man they forgot. I am the man they didn't think could rise. But I did. And I'm still rising every day with every choice, with every breath I take that doesn't ask permission. This is my life now. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And more than anything, finally mine. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.